We're back. This is Renovate and Build with Jim and Sandra, powered by Fair Trade Works.
Broke into the old apartment. This is where we used to live.
Good morning. We're happy to be waking up with you this morning.
And welcome to Renovate and Build, a show dedicated to you, the consumer. Basically a platform to provide information about everything construction.
This morning, we're thrilled to have our real estate expert joining us to continue to answer your listener questions, this time regarding real estate purchases. Nicola Campbell is a realtor with years of experience at Walter Homes. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Nicola. Thanks for getting out of bed on this dark and dreary Saturday morning to join us. I know it's a bit of a long drive from the North Shore. Nicola, lots of questions have come from the listeners, and we really like to talk about condos and apartments and townhouses. It appears we've been getting a ton of questions about that recently.
Okay.
So let's start with an email from Donna from Burnaby. She and a partner want to move downtown and sell their home in Burnaby. They're looking for a 1 or 2 bedroom condo, and they are having trouble finding a building that meets their needs in their $600,000 range. Is it possible right now to still find units in this price range that are larger than 800 square feet?
Absolutely. Provided that they're open to going into a building that may not be brand new. At 600,000, if you figure 1,000 square foot condo, so call it $600 a square foot. There certainly are options available just on the outskirts of downtown. Fairview, if you go wood frame building over concrete, that would probably knock your price per square foot down maybe $50 a square foot or so as an average. So certainly there's lots of product available in that range, and 2 bed, 2 bath is pretty comfortable in 800 square feet plus. So
it's so interesting with those older buildings, isn't it? Like you can get some really nice places if you want to invest and upgrade them.
Absolutely.
They've got nice space, a lot of the layouts.
Yeah, and that's something that we're seeing a lot of people wanting to go towards, that they would prefer to have the space over having somebody finish it off for them new. So that's where, of course, you guys come in.
Yeah.
And the tricky thing with the older buildings in the 70s, the 1970s build sometimes is adding in-suite laundry, which can be a limiting factor. But if you can add the in-suite laundry and do the reno, then they are excellent places to start to add value to a home with large square footage and the building history. You have lots of documents on file to know what you're getting into there.
Yeah, and those internal condos, they're just ultimately boxes, right? Like there's no real surprises there. You can go in there and gut them and start again. And
I know you've talked, they're like the pancake buildings too. You've said before are quite adaptable and nice layouts.
And in great areas too. Like a few shows back, we were talking to Peter Smith about kits, right? Like beachfront, gorgeous, older apartments, but you get some neighbors together and jump in, and you can basically rejuvenate your building and make it it's beachfront.
Absolutely, and a lot of the buildings are taking that step with the younger, like less seasoned buyers. I think they go into the older buildings and maybe get a little bit turned off of the lobby not being super flashy and so on. But once you can look past that and understand that that's a group expense from a strata point of view, and also that's not where you're living. So if you can do what you want to your own space. It's
so true, right? Everybody's just running to this new product, which is there's some good and there's some bad. Buyer beware.
Agree.
It's all different. So I think people really need to kind of unlock some new carpets, some nice new mirrors, and some new furniture, and you've got yourself a great lobby, right?
Oh gosh, yes.
People just run to the new stuff, and investors do too. But there's tons of great old stock that can be rejuvenated and just be a way better living space and
fewer tenants. That's what I like.
Yeah.
That you often have smaller numbers in those older buildings.
Exactly,
too, right?
And you park in 1 floor underground. You're not spiraling that. It's this condo is great. Where's my parking spot? Oh, it's 26 stories underground, right? Like, it's not. It's not. I just don't think it's ideal. And it's just people just need to open their horizons to different options.
I totally agree. And the nice thing that we can do, and that we have done in past, is for those buyers that are having a little bit of a difficult time envisioning what the space could look like, or wrap their head around what it could transform into. It's a good thing to have buyers, and if you're out there looking to do a renovation, go and see some of these sales suites and take notes of the things that you really like, the sinks or the floors or the colors, and snap some pictures. And that's a really easy way to show it to an interior designer or a contractor to then take that, and you can easily recreate that feel in a new space.
Exactly.
So Donna from Burnaby, there you go. There's lots of options for you. You can give Nicola a call and find out what inventory is on the market for you. You're listening to Renovate and Build here on CL 650 with Sandra and Jim, and we're joined by Nicola Campbell from Walter Homes. Nicola, we have Anna from Port Coquitlam who has an email for you. She asks what her young family can do to move up from their apartment that they own. She says they're looking for a bigger condo and have saved $50,000 for a down payment. They're unsure, though, what a realtor should be bringing them in the search for their new home. She said, do we do our homework first about the downtown core, or should we call someone to work with them right away from the start?
My general feeling on that is that you should be speaking with somebody sooner than later.
Okay.
And the reason being is that when we have a buyer's package that we go over with all of our new clients, and we outline, what steps are involved. If they do have their place to sell, there is certain logistics there that need to come into play, which they might need to start thinking about in advance. If they don't have to sell and they have that $50,000 available to go ahead and buy, at those meetings, we take them through a list of questions on criteria for an apartment. And a lot of times the buyers haven't totally thought about some of those questions. For example, is an outdoor space an absolute must? Is in-suite laundry an absolute must? Is a renovation a possibility for them, and so forth? Are rentals critical for them to be able to rent out the suite down the road, pets, and so on? And so sometimes it can be an exercise in futility by going out, having a look at these places, falling in love with something, only to find out that it doesn't match up with what they actually need. So I would definitely recommend sitting down and speaking with a realtor. Also, just going out, checking out some some open houses on the weekend, and getting feel of the neighborhood, seeing if you like the vibe, if you feel safe, if you're enjoying the atmosphere, because that obviously would hone in the search when we get a chance to speak with you later.
It really can help with expectations, can't it? Expectation setting, because I know for price, when I went out for my first home, I wanted a big expensive house, but I didn't have the money for it. So you really do, as you said, you go and you look at these expensive properties and think, oh yeah, this is what I want, and you get your hopes set really high, and then a realtor brings you back down to reality and goes, but this is what you can afford.
We still want to make the dream happen. So but yeah, it's we also just want to make sure that we're not wasting anybody's time, and we're trying to be the most efficient in the search. And like anything in Vancouver, the properties that come up that are unique or maybe have some great features that a number of buyers are looking for, they go fast. So again, using a realtor earlier on in your search, you do have the advantage of getting the listings 3 days earlier, because we have that on our side with the MLS system. So that can be in their back pocket as well, for getting in, seeing the place, and being able to make a move before somebody else grabs it.
It's crazy in this market. Like say you get the listing 3 days earlier, that's huge, right? In this market, when people are so aggressive, like they're just off the market in days.
Oh gosh, yeah. And we also have an opportunity to go and check out listings on Agent Opens. So for different areas around Vancouver, there are times set during the week where we are going through new listings. And again, like, that gives us a chance to preview, and we can call the client and cut down some of the legwork for them, but also just make sure that they are not missing out on a good place.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
consumers need to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Nicola, I've had this experience. I called a real estate office, and I'm unsure if I'm getting a full-time staff member, a seasoned realtor, or a guy who's just doing it part-time. What's the difference? And what questions can I ask to ensure that I'm dealing with somebody who is, really is qualified and is going to help me in my quest to find real estate?
That one's a tough one. The real estate board deregulated the requirement to have real estate as your full-time profession in 2005. And so since then, we've seen a huge explosion of the number of people that carry a real estate license in Vancouver. I believe we're approaching, if not crested, over 12,500 realtors in the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver.
Isn't it just like carrying like a purse or like a poodle, like in Beverly Hills?
It's well, it certainly seems that it is one degree of separation from somebody's, nephew or uncle or girlfriend or boyfriend. But the tricky thing there is that there aren't any disclosure requirements of those realtors to tell you that they're only working part-time. And I think that it's very important, and thanks for bringing this up, that people are asking those questions and finding out what the experience level is of their realtor. I think we can all agree that, if you knew that you had to go against ICBC because you were in a car accident and the lawyer that you selected had only tried, call it, one case in the past 5 years, would you feel really comfortable with that person representing your interests? And I feel the same way about real estate. Like, you should really be asking the realtors what their background is and how much experience they're bringing to the table, how much time they can designate to you. I think those are extremely valid questions.
Critical, yeah. It's just huge money. I tell the story about a realtor I use not recent. I deal with quite a few realtors, but somebody I just asked to do a comparable of two homes in Shaughnessy. One was I was looking at to purchase for a development lot, and one of them for a client of mine, and he said, well, we were talking about listing prices, anyway, we were doing some deals, and he said, well, this one is the closest one is directly comparable, and I actually relayed that information to my client, and then I actually thought, I'll just go check out the homes later on my way home to do some due diligence. And one was completely renovated like 5 years ago, this immaculate property, and one was literally like falling to pieces. But that realtor gave me that information. Like, thought he was giving me great information.
And presented it as if they were legitimately comparable?
Legitimately comparable, and they were like 5 blocks away from each other, and one was in wreck and ruin, like, unhabitable, windows missing, and one was recently, 5 years ago, fully renovated in this gorgeous property, right? And that is information I got from a realtor, right? And I know what I'm talking about, but consumers, I believe, are just getting so much bad information from realtors that I strongly believe it's absolutely critical that you deal with a realtor that's tried and tested and completely
Absolutely.
trusted.
And that brings to light another consideration in terms of when buyers out there are wanting to go and try and represent themselves in a purchase, that the information that they receive from the listing agent, if the buyer has chosen to represent themselves, for example, in the transaction, we see this from time to time where the buyer feels that maybe they can save themselves the cost of commission for a buyer's agent and so on. And the information that legally a realtor representing the seller is required to give does not have to be completely unbiased. So it can be information that is leaning towards the benefit of the seller only. So you could lean towards paying a higher price than if you had somebody that was unbiased working in your best interest and trying to find those comparables for you, so you had the proper information to make a call on market value.
It's frustrating. It's just exactly like the construction industry that I work in, obviously with Fair Trade Works, and what we're trying to abolish is that people, it's not true service. They're not doing their clients true service. They're just ultimately trying to make a dollar or trying to do a deal at people who just don't know. They're not fully educated. They're consumers looking to buy a home, right? So it's all manipulated so heavily that it's just the whole business model of realty is. There's great realtors out there. I'm sitting next to one right now, but
Thank you.
It's just, it doesn't make sense to the general public.
Well, and why we're talking about this now is that you have to ask the right questions. And I think that's what's really important. And working in this network like we are, and why we're doing this forum today, and Jim, why you started the radio show, was to be able to recommend people that we trust. And I think that that's the gist of anything. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with a doctor. It doesn't matter, when you go back, just to clarify, Nicola, do I have the right as a consumer to check with anyone on someone's qualifications? So if I call and I get a realty office and I say, are you a full-time realtor and what's your background? Is there anywhere I can check that information?
You could verify with the manager of the office. The office manager, I believe, has a duty to disclose.
Okay.
But it's a tough one, and it's one that there seems to be increasing desire to have a disclosure requirement for those realtors, or for all realtors, to indicate how much business they are doing or not doing.
Well, one more question here before we let you go. The Economist News magazine has voted, of course, Vancouver the world's third most livable city and the top Canadian city to live in. Are you finding a lot of international buyers are still interested in the condo apartment market right now?
Certainly, they do tend, as a huge general statement, there tends to be more focused on land acquisition at the moment, but certainly for those that are coming here to retire, to hold investment property that maybe don't want to stay in hotels and have their own place downtown, yes, that's a very active market on the condo side of things downtown.
And would you say that's still affecting the condo prices?
Yes, in certain price points. The very high end product, we're seeing a larger component that is international buyers that really want the nice, spectacular pad to retire in here. And then also on the mid-low range of the scale in terms of price point for the investors that are wanting revenue properties, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, etc.
We would not be doing our listeners justice if we didn't give them some hot deals today. Can you give them some hot deals?
Okay. Yes, absolutely.
Speaking of getting in on some of the specials.
Yes. So in terms of what we do is we go back and we look at what kind of percentages of properties are selling. So how many places were listed in price bands of $100,000, so 300 to 400, 4 to 5, et cetera, and how many listings there were versus how many sold in that month. And then that gives us a percentage where we can get an indication of if it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. So the downtown market pretty much across the board is sitting in a seller's market at this point, with the exception of the price band between 600 to 700,000. There's actually considerably more inventory there than there were sales last month, so that would be a price band to keep an eye on. And then looking on to the west side and east side, condos and townhouses attached properties that are over 800,000, stretching all the way up to $1.5 million. Those have also seen a bit of a suppression in activity this month. So, and then the same thing goes for the east side townhouses and condos as well. They tend to be pretty suppressed over $700,000. So, those markets right now have quite a bit of inventory, and the sales just aren't keeping up with the number of listings.
Interesting.
Good to know.
Assumption all the time, right? Well, thank you very much, Nicola. We appreciate your time today, as always.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Nicola. And coming up right after the break, we're gearing up for another round of product face-off. This week, Gary and Meg are talking smart ovens. No, they don't do all the cooking for you, but they make things a whole lot easier. Stay with us for the details.
There's still lots more ahead. This is Renovate and Build, powered by Fair Trade Works with Jim and Sandra.